Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. Bringing to you today lesson number 6 in my series of lesson shorts of the book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes from the Bible, taught from the position, if you will, of the prophetic, the biblical and authentic Kabbalah, the original teachings of the prophets, the actual and true interactive communications with the spiritual realms. And that's important for me to explain right here, right now, because as we go into today's little class here, we're going to have a damning condemnation of materialism. Now, by materialism, I don't want to sound like I am condemning any kind of acquisitions or wealth or property or anything of the kind, simply because we know from reality and certainly from biblical example, there's nothing wrong with any of that. We can look throughout our biblical history and we find that the original patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, were all extremely wealthy individuals. They enjoyed the finer things in life. They might have been very different, those finer things, than ours today. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with them. Now, that's important for us to understand because, they got this mentality out there today that wealth is wrong and having acquisitions and accomplishments is evil, and it should all be taken away from those people. Wealth redistribution and all that. Well, we have a word for wealth redistribution in the Bible. We call it theft, like in thou shalt not steal. Now, I'm not going to get into issues of politics and the things because I want to stay focused on our Kabbalistic, our spiritual elements here. And we are now in chapter 1 of Kohelet. And I'm going to start reading to you from verse 12. All right, we skipped a couple of verses there, but it's all within the context of our previous class, so we don't need to go into it. But from right now, Solomon, who is our author, remember, these words are, more than just philosophy, because philosophy is kind of like my ideas about all high and sublime things. Solomon was the deepest of high and sublime guys, but this book, written towards the end of his life, is very simple, a down-to-earth book. And he's going to address the topic now of materialism, but not like you think. He states, verse 12, Ani Kohelet, Haiti Melech al Yisrael b'Yerushalayim. I am the Kohelet. Remember we said what the word Kohelet, the gatherer, the teacher, if you will. Right? I was king over all of Israel in Jerusalem. And then, because remember, if you go back into your biblical history, when Solomon becomes king and he builds the temple and he asks God of all things, hey, give me wisdom so I can understand things. And the wisdom of Solomon has been passed down to us through the centuries. The rumors of what he could accomplish, that he was literally profound in all these things. And yet it states that towards the end of his life, because he had 1,000 wives, oh my gosh, I can't imagine that. All right, they say they turned his heart away from God. And I think that this Kohelet is the results of that. Now, this is important to understand because what does that mean, turned his heart away from God? Notice it didn't say his body. He died, a Torah observant, God-fearing, God-believing individual, but it said his heart. You can get bogged down in all kinds of stuff in this world that really just drains you. And you could have all of this fancy stuff that people accomplish and acquire, which again in itself is not bad, as long as it doesn't become a source of bad for you. There are plenty of people who are wealthy and extremely wealthy, and the wealth is a benefit to them. And then there's those others, maybe more, maybe less, I don't know, who have the wealth and it's a scourge. It's a curse for them. It drives them nuts. It gives them nothing but stress and unhappiness. And I see a lot of people like this, who all they do is worry day in and day out about what they have, to the point that essentially they don't even have a life. Solomon says like this, verse 13 from the first chapter. Natati el libi lidrosh ulatur b'chokhmah al kol asher na'aseh tahat hashamayim. I have given my heart, remember this is the heart that fell away from God, to explore, to understand, to search all types of wisdom. Remember that's what he asked God for wisdom, about everything that happens under the sun. And remember we taught you what that special term under the sun means, okay? And he states here like this, Hu ra natan Elohim levnei adam la'anot bo. Everything that I see, it's a bad thing that God has given us to deal with. What do you mean, bad thing? Come on. Life is good. All right? ראיתי את כל המעשים שנעשו תחת השמיים והנה, הכל הבל ורעות רוח. I've looked at all the things that are done under the heavens, he says here, and look, everything is that hevel, that vanity, and ra'ot ruach, bitter or bad spirit. All right? And he goes on to explain, but let's digress for a second to get into his negative mentality. What's being so negative about? All right? Isn't life good? Aren't we taught by our rabbis and our sages, trust in God, have faith, always be positive, etc.? Well, yeah. You know, with regards to prophetic teachings, we are taught that being that the spirit, what we call the spirit of prophecy, taps us into that higher dimensional plane through expanding consciousness. And expanding consciousness goes through the realm of emotions. So therefore, you look into the Bible, the biblical prophets used to have music and dance that would elevate them, get them in a mood, if you will, to ascend in consciousness that enabled them to tap into the higher dimensions. So your heart, your emotions, in our Kabbalistic terminology, your Yitziratic soul, based on the Tiferet Tiferet, is everything. It's your pathway up. You go from the physical body, physical consciousness in Malkhut, through the power of the libido, the creative, vibrant force energy, Tiferet Yesod, into the essence, which is the heart, Tiferet, which is the higher reality of things. That's the path. That's the way we do it. That's the way we observe it. And Solomon had a big problem. Why? Remember, I just said to you, the ascent is through Yesod, the creative libido force. Now, libido is not just sexual energy. It's the entire creative force energy. And when you dissipate that in ways and means which are weakening, it disturbs and hinders your psychic ascent above. So, with regards to meditation and stuff, sexual balance is considered vital and essential. Many spiritual paths are actually sexually abstinent so as not to be distracted. We don't believe in that, but we do believe you have to have a proper monogamous male and female relationship for balance and harmony, for appropriate energetic balance through, again, Malkhut here, Yesod to Tiferet. That's just the way the energy works. Call it the yin and the yang. We call it the ma and the ben. It's pretty much the same ideas. And that's the one area where, of all things, King Solomon was blemished. This is a guy who sought out all the wisdom in the world. And what did he find? He found 1,000 women. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I can't. I hear about these supposed entertainers today and sports people who are looked at and praised in our society because of their financial accomplishments through careers and deeds which really have no value whatsoever. I'm sorry, I don't describe much value to professional sports players or entertainers. I really don't think that their contributions to humanity are of that significance as compared to great scientists or musicians or people who actually interact with, work with, and help one another by contributing and offering something to the greater whole. I know you might not agree with my opinions on that, and so be it. Hey, we all speak our mind here. But Solomon, like a lot of these other guys, all right, he got around, but that ruined his creative life force energy. It weakened his resolve as a human being. And he looked towards this world disconnected. He wasn't disconnected from God, but it said turned his heart. Heart is Tiferet. He couldn't connect with Tiferet because of the blemish in his Yesod. And that is the big problem. Take a look around us in the world today. We are all suffering from this kind of a mentality of negativity. And we are becoming self-destructive as a society, all the more so as individuals. Look at all of those people who have accomplished, like I just mentioned, the entertainers and the sports stars. How many of them have had terrible, terrible bouts with alcoholic abuse, drug abuse, all types of abuse, depression, and the like? We hear of these people in the entertainment industry especially, who we consider to be so great, so accomplished, and they end up like committing suicide and things like that. You go, my gosh, what happened? What happens is that even with all of their accomplishments in this life, like Solomon, they recognized that unless you have the spiritual acquisition, that's a dramatic pause there, you have nothing. And that's what Solomon recognized as well. That's why he was so, if you will, bitter here. And he even goes on, verse 14, he states, I've seen all these things, everything's bitter. Because this is his attitude, this is his outlook on life, because of the lifestyle choices he made, not with wealth and money, but with everything that came with it. You could win today $1 billion in the lottery. What's it going to do for you? Will it change you for good or for bad? Now, you don't have to take all that money and give it all to charity, even though it's a great and noble thing to do. Nothing wrong with having a good life. But what is the attitude associated with it? Where is your mind? What other things are you going to do for your help or your own harm? You see, this is where Solomon was at. And this book is one of the books of the Bible that the rabbis really challenged whether or not they should include it because of this negativity here. Verse 15 states, Me'ovat lo yochol litkon, heseron lo yochol limanot. That which is crooked will never be made straight, and that which is missing can never be filled. That was Solomon's attitude. Is that true? Times, absolutely true. Other times, maybe not. When we mess up in life, and I think we all do at times, all right, that's just part of being human, we live with the belief that there is hope for change for the better. And we get through. We move forward. Rather than embrace a negative, we choose to embrace the positive, and that changes the entire outlook. That's the secret here. So whether or not you have accomplished this or that in the material world is really irrelevant, as much as your attitude with regards to it. So I've heard it said somewhere, it's not the money that's bad and evil, it's the love of money that's so bad. And I don't even think that's true. It all depends what you do. So there are some big secrets here with regards to like souls and the like. And Solomon knew this. Remember, this was not a dumb man. He understood everything that was going around. He understood. Here, verse 16, right? He says, Dibarti ani im libi. I spoke within my heart. And I said, I'm just going to read in English. I increased great wisdom more than all others, and my heart saw much wisdom and much knowledge. And I applied to my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. And I know that this too is frustration. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases pain. Increasing knowledge increases pain? What the heck is that all about? Remember his attitude. Remember his point of view. When you look at the world from a negative viewpoint, all you will see is negative. If, on the other hand, you look at the world in a positive, then you would see positive. Now, you could say, Solomon had all the wisdom. Didn't he know the difference between the positive and the negative, the wisdom and the folly? Yes, he did. But you're missing the point. This is not a philosophical outlook. This is more than just an emotional outlook. It is an energetic interaction and reality of the world. Like we've taught in so many places. This physical world, the Malkhut in which we live, it is what we call the final level, the receptacle of all the higher worlds. This world, like the moon, which represents it, all right, symbolically, has no light of its own. You see the sun's the source of light. But the moon has no light. It's reflecting light. This physical world reflects all the higher dimensions of the emotional realities within us, the intellectual realities within us, and the intuitive psychic realities which we tap into. Right? All of those things are within this world. And this world is very structured. I'm talking about physical form of matter and reality. You all know how real physical law is, the real ways of the natural world. You can't just jump off your roof and think that you're going to fly. You can't spend money regardless of consequence, thinking you can go out into your backyard and pluck off your money tree. All right? I don't care if you're the richest man or woman in the world, you can waste it all. Others have. Energy is the conduit that comes into this world and creates the reality. We said from the Tiferet through the Yesod to the Malkhut, okay? That's the reality. You don't need to have all the deep Kabbalistic understandings to get this. Understand, this is what in our Torah tradition we call the divine presence, the Shekhinah. In the Oriental tradition, they call this the Tao, the natural order and flow of the universe. When you are in sync and in alignment with it, you will indeed have peace and positive outlook. But when you're not, like Solomon says, that which is crooked, you can't fix. Solomon's women led him astray. That was his weakness. No, nothing wrong with, certainly nothing wrong with love. Love is the greatest thing in the world. All right? Even sex, even erotica, is certainly nothing wrong with that. Look at the Song of Songs. Our rabbis included that. All right? Solomon was a pretty hot, sexy guy. Nothing wrong with any of that. I don't care how, what a husband and wife do in the privacy of their bedroom. I don't care how wild and kinky you get. That's their business. Nothing to do with you and me. I think that's actually a healthy thing. But Solomon dissipated that energy. He weakened it, took it in all these different directions. And because of that, his psychic libido was weakened and brought him into a state of negativity and harm. And that is the attitude that we see expressed here in Kohelet. So when we're going to condemn materialism, we're going to condemn a materialism that is disconnected from the higher spiritual element, that higher dimensional plane, which gives our world its value and more, its form. Solomon got disconnected. Not that he intended to do it. I believe honestly he intended to do the opposite. But because of the dissipation of the life force energy and going in different ways, it disconnected him. That is the source of depression that you will see today in our society, and our whole society today, is because of this destruction of our true libidic, our energetic sense to connect with the spiritual, we've literally bankrupted ourselves. And look at where we are today. So we have to learn these lessons from good old wise King Solomon about positivity of outlook, about proper balance and alignment with nature, recognizing that this physical world of ours is not the end all. It's just a small portion of the whole. And whatever you have, whatever you have accomplished, whatever you have acquired, use it for the greater wisdom in whatever way that is appropriate and beneficial for all, and not just for your selfish self. Now, it doesn't mean you have to give it all away. You'll know what to do when your heart and your mind are one. Think about these things. Ariel Tzadok here, Kosher Torah School. I'll see you all in our next class. Shalom.